Welcome to Anecdotes for Success with Matt and Paul. Storytelling is an art form, emphasizing the value and learning that is created through personal experience. Our purpose is to share these stories and experiences with the listener. Everyone has a powerful testimony. Let's use them to level up to our best life with truth, meaning, trade-offs, and perspective.
Big shout out to Isaac Mather for the new podcast intro. You can check Isaac's music out on all socials or directly at isaacmathermusic.com. All right, here we are, episode 100. 50 episodes ago, we promised we're going to do a live episode, and more on where the episode's at and who our guest is in a little bit. But it's been a fun ride. Over 50 guests, anywhere from pro college athletes, CEOs, community leaders, coaches. I had to write them down, there's so many. Young adult entrepreneurs, military personnel, and we've had a half dozen repeat guests as well. We even implemented educational episodes midweek. We call them 0.5 episodes. This is our first live makeshift studio episode today. Compliments of owner and entrepreneur Seth Olney. More on Seth in a minute. And what I'm proud about, Matt, is it all started from ground zero. Like, it was nothing except a phone call. And in my opinion, it's only the beginning.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? It's kind of become what we envisioned in a lot of ways, and in some other ways, it's been much more so. And the interesting guests we've had on, and the laughs, and the education we're getting, the perspective, and all those kinds of things it's exceeded my expectations, and it's enjoyable. It's just something I look forward to every week or a couple times a week or whatever we end up doing. But I'd say it's been a success, but not nearly where we kind of continue to go with it, right?
Yeah, and people ask me all the time why we do it, and it sounds weird, but it's really for the guests and the relationships and the conversations. Because we used to do this on the phone all the time.
Right.
And that's how it started. We should record it.
Yeah. Well, and then we've been doing it on our computers for the rest of the time. And now here we are. It's weird having the conversation
it's really weird.
Us in person, right? We've talked about a studio sometime and doing that, and then having it. But this is what it ideally would be anyway, right? So
yeah, and I actually had to have clothes on instead of just a top today.
Yeah, I checked.
But as we'll get started today, we have Seth Olney on today. Olney. I feel like I trip on that name all the time.
I would always have said Olney. Tell people like Olney.
Okay.
If you've listened to like ESPN, Buster Olney, they usually say Olney as well. When you special and double entendres like I do, you actually use the play on words like the Olney Place, because we're the only place for 20 miles. People inherently end up calling it Only or whatever, because that was kind of the suggestion or what was being gestured in naming it this.
Sure. Yeah.
But it is Olney. So how people come up with only, I guess it's a consonant reading thing. I don't know. It's
I trip on it all.
Yeah,
I was practicing.
It's happened my whole life.
I was practicing it on the way up too. But I've known Seth for quite a while. You and Seth go way back.
We do now. I mean, it's got. I was thinking the other day in anticipation. What's it been 12 years?
Yeah,
something like that.
Yeah, of
13,
knowing each other.
Of knowing each other, because I met my wife up here, although I've been here and we're on Keuka Lake my whole life, as have you, to some degree or another. I met my wife up here, and then that's when I started spending more time socially up here as opposed to just our cottage, our family place, after meeting her. And then that's when I met you and your brother and all the other friends we have around here. There's a special group of people around here. There truly is. And then that's how I met Seth. And I got to admit, I thought by now that you would be either a congressman or a senator or a governor by now. We'll get into that, I'm sure. But anyway, that's how I met Seth, and we've had a great friendship, in my opinion, and we get into good conversations as well, which is why one of the reasons why it made sense for our 100th guest. And because you're an interesting person, and I mean that with all the respect in the world. So,
and what we'll real quick,
we're at Seth's Place. It's in the Finger Lakes, Cuco Lake. It's one of the best places around for a lot of reasons. And instead of me talking, why don't you tell us about your place, and we'll start asking questions and go from there.
For me, going on spring break, going to Florida, was the first time that I ever realized that the idea of being a snowbird was a thing that people do. Now, most people don't do that during their career; they either do it after. But I thought, wow, wouldn't it be great to be a snowbird, like for a living? And when I got out of college, I promised myself that I would try to be a snowbird by the time I was 30, and I ended up mostly doing it by the time I was 27. So I did meet that one benchmark I gave myself when I left school. But I grew up with a family of entrepreneurs. Our family business, my brother is now a partner, third generation of Knapp and Schlappy, a very well-known building materials store in town. And, I love the freedom that my parents had. My mom growing up, and she was running the business and, never missed a track meet or a soccer game for any one of myself, my brothers. And so owning your own business, I felt like was another goal of mine. So to be able to own my own business that allows me to have a seasonal style of living here in the Finger Lakes is really a dream come true at many, many levels.
Yeah, you mentioned the word freedom, right? That's a word I use all the time when we're talking about business and why I'm in it. It was always freedom. It was not money. It was freedom. So it's funny to hear you say that. One of the things I think I want to ask you about is you're one of the most well-traveled people I know. I mean, when it comes to
within the continent,
merely within the continent. Fair enough. So, but you run a seasonal business. Is that a fair way to put it?
It is.
And then the rest of the year, you, whether you choose to or not, you can go wherever you decide to go. And much of that is done in the continent. And you've seen places, and I'm looking at your screen right now, which has a beautiful, you've got photos of.
Sedona.
Is that where that is? Okay, thank you, Sedona. And you've been more places that are, I don't want to say off the beaten path by any means, because those aren't, but it's not just like, I've been to Dallas and to Miami and LA, and you've driven much of this. Has that always been something you wanted to do? Did you fall into that? Was this at 27 or actually in college part of the dream? Like, how did that happen? Because I'm fascinated by it.
We didn't travel a lot as kids.
Oh, did not?
Did not.
Okay.
My parents working, having their own businesses, we just didn't get to. So it was often in our early ages, it was a staycation. They would rent a cottage on the lake, maybe Florida. And by the time I got to college, I had a lot of friends that had done a lot of traveling internationally, done cross-country trips, and I was always really envious and almost insecure how few places I feel like I had been. I think at that point, the furthest west I'd been was Indianapolis for a Knapp and Schlappy do-it-best trade show.
Who wouldn't want that?
Right.
So I embarked on my first cross-country adventure when I was 30, and it was over after that.
Yeah.
Then it was just crossing states off my list. And I'm still, I don't want to say insecure, but I haven't been as many places internationally. Part of it was trying to, and being a good American traveler, having seen as much of my own country as possible. I had big plans to go to Alaska, my 50th state, on my 40th birthday, and of course the pandemic kind of threw a monkey wrench into that. So I need to just get on a plane and go to Alaska and get it off my list so I can start with Colombia and Switzerland and all the places that I really do want to see and have friends and family and other extended members that I could reach out to and resource. And I love to travel where I know people, and I also love going as a complete stranger on my own and forcing myself out into the world to meet people. And I think it's a great way to educate yourself. And with this business in particular, we're really big into craft beer.
Yeah.
So before New York's boom really took place, which I would say wasn't until maybe 14, 15, 16, and you have some of the really great breweries that we have now, there was a time between 10, 11, 12, 13 where I was selling a lot of West Coast beers, North Coast in Fort Bragg, and Lost Coast out of Eureka, and Rogue out of Oregon, and it just gave me a reason to go see these places, partially to use it as a write-off, some of it.
Right.
But to just go and make relationships and try to get in with brewers and get in with brewery owners and find ways to get specific allocations on beers that nobody else was getting. And so my specialty kind of became U.S. geography and beer towns. So whether it was Three Floyds in Munster, Indiana, or the Santa Darius outside of Santa Cruz, just forcing yourself into these little nooks and crannies of the country where good beer was being made and finding enjoyment in that.
Yeah, and that's unique to you and your personality and what you've done for me. But do you remember when Cassie and I went to Napa? I don't know how many years ago. It was 2018 maybe or something like that. And we were out in Napa Valley, and you're like, you got to stop at. It was like a deli.
Yes.
It's kind of similar to your place, and you're like, it'll be on your right, and you're gonna in the back. And you knew so much of what that was like.
There was a really great store outside of Healdsburg called the Jimtown store, which is now closed. But the real benchmark of kind of wine trail grocery stores is this place called Oakville Grocery. And now there's multiple locations. And that always, to me, was like a place to go, like a Mecca trip. This is going back 10, 15 years ago. And now I've been referred to so many other places. People come in and they say, oh, your place reminds me of,
right.
And they tell me their random place back home. The most recent one, a shout out to one of my favorite stores in the country, is this place called the Saxapahaw General Store. And it's a gas station with prepared food, great beer. The owner there, Jeff, and his staff, he really puts a lot of energy. He's a present owner. And it's a cultural hub. And I was honored to go there, but I understood why somebody would say my store feels like that, and it gave me a reason to go to someplace that's totally off the beaten path.
Where is that?
It's you're west of Raleigh, probably maybe 45 minutes. Going toward Chapel Hill.
Okay.
Saxapahaw General Store, and to go out there, our store here is on Route 54. You take a Route 54 the majority of the way to get there from Raleigh. So all of these things were I'm like, this is meant to be. And the owner and I, hugged, exchanged shirts, and it just gave me that much more reason to keep doing what I'm doing. Now there's another one that I was just referred to north of Daytona, the Tomoka, I think it's called. There's a state park that's there, and there's a little general store where the guy has beer and kayak rentals, and I'm looking at pictures and I'm like, wow, the shelving almost looked like what we have. So I'm constantly growing that list while still trying to check off places that I have not yet. So I'm getting ready to go to California here for a couple weeks, and to a place that I'm pretty familiar with, but I'll find ways to get into some new spots as well, which I'm really looking forward to.
So question, we all love to travel. I can tell how excited you get talking about travel.
Yeah.
My family traveled a ton when the kids were little with sports. My wife and I took a cross-country trip, so some of the places you're talking about, I can visualize because I've been there. But the question I want to ask is how inspiring, how much perspective and how inspiring is it for your own business when you see other ideas and things? Does that help, or don't you think of it that way?
There's very little here that I've invented. Most of this is knocking off things that I've seen. How beer is dispensed, the type of glasses that we use. I have a 50-foot mural here behind the store, which is kind of an anthropomorphic story of a lot of what I've seen and done. So whether it's, I've got a dozen examples out there from the Redwoods and everywhere else. And I don't know, I always find something to bring back with me all the time. And even just displaying my photography, you're in a community that is a pretty well-traveled community. You have a lot of second home owners that are here. Yeah. So when you can, I think in sales, I was in a Marriott timeshare group, my first job out of college.
Right.
And
down in Florida, right?
Down in Florida. Yeah. And I would look at the notes of who was coming in and where they were from. And even though I wasn't that well-traveled, I would try to spark up a conversation. When you get somebody to talk about where they're from, they immediately lower their shoulders a little bit. So now that I've been where I've been, and as many places that I've been, we'll have guests that come in, whether they're from Northern Virginia or maybe California. If you can name one random town or something that they're familiar with, it's an immediate connection with them in a different way.
Yeah.
I think than most.
Yeah, and it's relationship building, right? I mean, you kind of nailed. You talked about it a minute ago. You're like, you were talking about the other gentleman you just met, and you said he was a, what was the word you used? Present owner, maybe, I think you said, or
He was present.
He was present in his business,
oh,
right?
Absolutely.
And that certainly defines...
Jeff Barney.
Yes, yes. That certainly defines you, as a, whether you realize it or not. Yeah. That's who you are, too, right? And you know that, of course, but that is, I think in a small business, at some level, that's what you have to be. And I mean, if you get into franchising like I am and all, it's a different model. It's a different kind of thing. But you have to be to succeed. Certainly in this type of business, and succeed at your level, I would say, which I admire greatly. You can't. I don't think you can do it any other way with the competitive environment you're in. But it sounds like you've been pretty deliberate about much of this. None of this is much of an accident.
No, from the wood that's used on this table to that couch behind you, name it. Everything in here has a story because I have curated and pieced together this platform, this space to operate in that I'm super comfortable in because I do spend so much time here. You know, if you go to my house, of course I don't have a microwave here either, but at my home I don't have a television. You know, I don't have a lot of things that a normal house would. Of course, I'm a single guy that's spouseless and childless and petless and plantless. And, you know, but again, that's all. A lot of that is by design to remain as untethered as possible because, as you were saying, you know, to me, extended free time to yourself is your greatest currency. For me personally, you know, I drive a 11-year-old vehicle.
Right.
You know, there's things that I don't have a lot of. I don't even own a credit card. You know, at this point, I just got debit cards. You know?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So to be as debt free as I can be, and to be as untethered as I can be, and then to give yourself, you know, through if I'm taking half a year off, I can look back and like, what'd you do in your 30s?
Right.
Well, collectively, I took 5 years off.
Yeah.
And mostly it was on the road for much of it.
Right.
And I'll look back at that as something I'm really proud of because I think when I was early in my days of meeting people and people that had traveled, a lot of them were really young and they didn't have a lot of resources, but they had all that piss and vinegar to climb the mountain and go on a crazy hike or do whatever. Or on the back end, they're 65 and they're retired and they have all the resources in the world. They can get great RVs and they can stay in hotels or do whatever they want to do, but they don't necessarily have that piss and vinegar to go and to, you know, let's be at the Badlands at sunrise in this location to get this shot because this is what I've read is what you want. To do kind of a mix of both and to have the network that I do now, places to stay, whether it's Rapid City, South Dakota, or pick your beach in Florida, to go and to stay with people that you've met through the store that are genuine, that want you to come and visit them. Yeah. It's the greatest gift that I think I could have given myself without intent. And I did not see this becoming the reality that it is. And it's really just the most rewarding part of what I do. There is a price for that, and that is, you know, 15, 90-hour weeks through the peak of the summer, and even in the downtime, you're here, you know, 50, 60 hours a week. That's my downtime, you know, early as the season's going, and as it shoulders in the end toward Columbus Day, when we just closed last Sunday. So I probably collectively put in as much time as the average person does working. I just find a way to concentrate it into the whitest, hottest part of the summer, and I give that up knowing that there is this great reward at the end.
Well, you answered the question I was going to ask you about trade-offs, and that's okay, because the part that hits home to me is my wife and I being educators, we would never trade that for the world with all the freedom we have. The trade-off is potentially the limits on income and other things you do, but we spent our 20s, 30s, and 40s traveling a ton, but the cost was, well, there's only so many ways you can transform yourself and rise up in the system and make more income. And I was going to ask you about the trade-off of being able to, what you do half the year, and you answered it, of course. That you put in like every hour of the summer. You're working.
Yeah, I'm here. I think other than one day I went to a wedding, maybe, that the staff closed. And it's not that I don't trust them, it's that being here is part of what has become the experience. And I unfortunately have, you know, I've made myself the master of ceremonies here, and people expect to see you. You know, if I leave for an hour in the middle of a July Thursday, it's to get change and tomatoes and to just do something that's not in the store, but still on behalf of the store. And God forbid somebody's coming to see you that hasn't seen you, and they come and check in. Oh, I see old man Olney isn't around. Must be nice. It's like, no. That is not it at all.
It's so funny you say that, because that's who you are, and that's what my political comment at the beginning was like, because you connect with people, and that has become, this place would not be the same without you. It just wouldn't. And you've got great people here too. But
great. I have a great staff.
You do.
But,
You truly do.
It's going to do.
When I come here on a Saturday morning at 9 a.m., closer to 10 if it's Saturday, and pick up 8 breakfast sandwiches, for the family, and I head back and I walk in the door, you know what the first question I get every single time is? Every single time. How's Seth? What's Seth? And you know my family a little bit, not as close as we are, of course, but you know my family,
sure.
and it is part of the experience to come here. And I've thought of this before. Even if you guys delivered, your sandwiches, or anything, whatever, it would be, I don't know what that would look like, because coming here is an experience. It is not, I've had conversations with people, I couldn't name a price here. I couldn't name necessarily even the inventory. These things change, and you come here for an experience that is unique to any other experience, certainly in the Finger Lakes, that I'm aware of.
Thank you.
And that is something that is so unique and so special, and it's been built over, how long have you been open now?
This is the end of our 16th summer.
And 16 years. And it didn't take long, from my perspective, for you to become that. I mean, it's evolved.
Yeah.
But as far as it to be your place and your identity, and the place has evolved. I mean, just the room we're in right now, we talk about that for probably 2 hours.
Yeah, we'll get there.
That's all right. That's a whole different. We might need attorneys sitting with us for that one. But what you have created is not, hey, open the door and let's sell some good products and we'll run some commercials and make some money. It is a whole different thing here, and I would, if anyone travels to this area and the beautiful Finger Lakes, and gosh, we have a lot to offer, right? You're in love with the area, I'm in love with the area, I'm sure you're in love with the area, but this place right here is one of the most unique places I've ever been in my life. And to say that I have a good friend of mine owns it is really special. But what you and your team, but certainly led by you, have done is it's incredible. And I the success you've created, how you've created your life around it, right? Somewhat unintentionally, it sounds like, is, I think, should be inspiring to people, because we always talk trade-offs, right?
Yeah.
Constantly, it never ends, because you can't make, everything's a trade-off in life. But the story you can tell about, I give all this to get all this, and the way you use the word concentrate it and all, it's not like most people live, right?
It's totally different.
Totally different. But it's there, it's possible. You don't have to go be part of a cog in the wheel of the machine, that I call it. You can create your own life. You can do your own things. It's out there. And having someone tell a story like you are, and be able to say it not from, hey, this is what you could do, but this is what I do, invaluable.
You found a way to take an old rundown grocery store, basically, right? We can get on that in a minute. And make it your brand and you for the experience. You find a way to make hard work look easy. I come here in the summer and you can barely look up to say hi, but you're just chill doing 100. It's like you have octopus arms back there. You got your staff working, and you're right, you're always here.
It's an important facet. Like I said, if I were to do this over again, I don't know if that's what I would choose to do, to be as present as I am, and maybe, I don't even know. But it has become what it's become, and thank you for your compliments. It was always a location where there was a gas station and kind of a general store. It evolved from Kenyon's in the 40s and 50s through the 70s. It was Charlie's was what it was called when I was a young person coming here and getting ice cream, and then most recently was Froggy's right around 1990, and it stayed Froggy's until 06. The building that I bought had been built in 1961, and through the various owners and layouts and things, the floor looked like Swiss cheese, because condensers are going here and refrigeration's going here, and people so I was like, just start. I thought about trying to rehab it a little bit, and then part of me is just like, every dollar that I put into this is going to be a dollar wasted. Yeah. Let's just start over. So I didn't even know I was going to do it at the time. We're like, screw it. We're going to take the year off and we're just going to build new. So I just essentially created that box out there with fluorescent lights at the time and all white walls. And I got a hold of a distributor and said, I want to have a convenience store. They essentially let you pick the planogram out of a box, you know. So I'm selling, you know, 4 different SKUs of Pop-Tarts and Pringles 3 different ways and 85 different packs of cigarettes out there. It worked, you know, but it was like, it didn't really feel like, it certainly didn't feel like it does now. But I was always there.
Yeah.
And Paris was, you know, my best friend who's been with me, helped me build this place, was always here. And people appreciated that. So when you were trying to build up the inventory, you know, people come in, when are you going to get more stuff? It's like, well, when you buy more stuff, I have more money to buy more stuff with it.
So I want to get into some of the adversity about your adventure, because it's not just hard work, it's the ups and downs of what you went through. But before, can we talk, when you come in and talk to my students, just like when Matt does, I find it fascinating all the different income streams you have to make this work, and that, I don't want to say it keeps you bulletproof, but it makes you less vulnerable, right?
Well, this room in particular, we added this on. So the store opens in 2008. We're doing kind of our thing, and I feel like I've told this story before on other formats and other platforms, so I don't want to sound
Not as good as this. So.
Yeah, no. But it was right around 2010, 11, 12, and people looking for gluten-free options and vegan options and things. So we expanded what was our, you know, penny candies and Pop-Tarts and Pringles turned into fancy granola bars or gluten-free breads, and 4 feet of shelving turned into 12 feet of shelving. And now the overwhelming majority of what we have here are really artisan goods, I think, that have been curated, you know, through my travels and seeing stuff and reading a lot of trade magazines and doing a lot of online research about, you know, what's selling and trying to find different avenues and outlets and distributors to get different products in here. It's not, I don't have a great inventory practice because I'm constantly changing what I'm bringing in. So that's something that I'm always trying to work on myself, because it does change. You come in here, you said you don't know what's on the shelf.
Right. Yeah.
Year to year, I don't even know if I know what's on the shelf.
Right,
Sometimes
right.
I'm like, oh yeah, we do sell gochujang, and we do sell some sort of, you know, crazy pasta, or we some sort of soup dish maybe.
I'll wander around just to see what's on the shelves, the funny names.
Yeah, and
fancy
that's
goods, not
part of the
interrupt.
experience.
Yeah.
Is that, you know,
Yeah.
I don't want to have ragu and
Right.
Chips Ahoy. You know, you want to have name the sauce. I mean, there's thousands of sauces, hot sauces.
Yeah.
To put different products where people come in like, oh my god, I can't believe you have, because they saw it somewhere else, or they have this really bougie store they go to and they come in here like, oh my god, you have this. I'm like, yeah, of course we do. You know? Where else would you go? But you would be hard pressed to find a lot of what we have here within a 30 or 40 mile radius for sure.
Without that.
So, and as you were saying before, you know, to come to the Finger Lakes, making it a point to come here, that was one of my goals, was within 5 years to feel like I was a landmark on Keuka Lake, and within 10 to 15 feel like I was a landmark in the region. So that if you came to the Finger Lakes, or God forbid Keuka, and you came here for 5 days and went back home and told your friends, and one of them happened to know this place.
Yeah.
Did you go to the Olney Place? You know,
Right.
I would want them to feel like they missed out if they didn't come here.
Yeah.
I want this to
That's
be
true.
an integral part of your visit, because there's lots of wineries, lots of breweries, lots of great stuff, but everyone needs, in their stay here, ice,
Sure.
sunscreen, whatever it might be. So there's no reason not to come here.
Plus the socialization here.
Yeah.
This is a place I will drive by. Sorry, Paul. and then
No,
I'll-
no, that's okay.
This is a place
I
I
didn't
will.
answer the first question.
I will.
No, I'm just trying to get back
I
to
don't
that.
even pay
Go
attention
ahead.
to his question half the time. I drive. You know, I'm driving up north, or you know, from our place. Or this is a place. It's one of two, I would say, that I will just stop, because I know when I stop here, there will be people here I know. Not even you. I mean, certainly you, but there will be likely people I know here that I can just have a drink with, or a sandwich with, or whatever. It is beyond just what's on the shelves, you know. And the fact that was part of your vision is so interesting. And you know, but that took work and a lot to it. But just to, you know, and then go ahead, Paul. But it is a place to socialize, not just a place to pick up pasta.
One of the things I knew I was absolutely going to do here was have a breakfast sandwich, you know, and to try to develop a breakfast group kind of culture. And we've done a great job of it. You know, you come in here in the mornings and there's all day long, it's like somebody's holding court constantly, and the various people, you know, you've got landscapers sitting next to CEOs, sitting next to captains of industry from all over, and nobody feels out of place, no matter how they're dressed, no matter how they're, because even the upper echelon of my clientele, they're on vacation too.
Yeah.
And in the end, they just want to go have really organic experiences. So to have created what I consider almost a cultural hub of our area really feels special. Breakfast sandwiches were it though, because I would, living in Albany, going to school in Albany, a lot of New York inspired delis, a lot of friends from New York City, Long Island, go back to their place and like, bacon, egg, and cheese, salt, pepper, ketchup was like the thing. And I was like, God, we don't have a great breakfast sandwich around where we are. So when I opened the store, it started from there. And sandwiches are just, everyone loves sandwiches.
Right, yeah.
Some version of it.
Multiple sometimes.
So, and I never had done prepared food as a living, but that's what we started with. From there, once you have kind of that build, you add in other products. Now people want to have your shirts. They want to have your coffee mugs. They want to have, so to get to your diversification of my really just different streams of revenue. I have 5 distinct streams of revenue here, which would be prepared food, grocery, meaning toenail clippers and cat food and charcoal and Pepsi and ice and worms and bread. All beer, meaning both in package and in here in draft. Merchandise, gear, swag, and then by the dock, boat gas. And each one of those represents around 18 to 22% of my revenue mix, my product mix. So I am diversified now more than ever. We didn't add this room on until 2014. We got our license to sell and consume beer on premise in 2013. And I was originally thinking of putting a deck on the back. This was just a wall with no windows or anything. And once we put this on, everything kind of changed, because now on the rainy days when people weren't coming by boat, they still had a reason to come here, have a beer, have a sandwich, and still continue to do the thing that you talk about and like, and what we were doing at the breakfast table. Now they do it all day long.
Right. Did you see that diversity when you built the place or got involved, where you're like, all right, we've got grocery and we've got prepared food, but the future is this, or that just evolved over time based on travel, based on talking to customers?
The very first year when I was building the store, we still ran the gas dock, so all I had was gas. And then we added in the prepared food, and then the beer thing kind of took over. Craft beer really around 8, 9, 10, so we always had a great selection of beer in here.
Yep.
Once now we're consuming it on premise. There were rainy days like today. If this was the middle of July, we'd be dead on arrival for the most part.
Yeah.
People want to have a beer and a sandwich. I didn't know it was going to become this. I did not.
Couldn't have. No way.
If you gave me all the money when I'm 27 building this place, I would not have seen this.
Yeah.
I didn't have the capability because of my lack of travels and
Lack of perspective, right?
Lack of perspective, lack of reference to other places that I really enjoyed. So no, I think if you have all the resources, maybe you reach and you buy something that you kind of find out you don't really need.
Yeah.
So to build up year after year after year, you buy what you need.
Yeah.
And you add what the market is telling you to do.
Right.
And to have it turned into this, I could not have seen this place 15 years ago.
Sure.
I didn't have the ability.
Yeah.
So to have been a part of those everyday operations and to implement new things, new artwork, new decor, it makes it feel like what you're talking about, I think, when you come in here.
We used to ask people the question all the time, if you could go back, what would you do different? And I'm starting to rethink that. Like, I know your story, you're telling us your story, I know mine. I don't think the right answer is you should ever go back, because you never could have built the place like you did.
Right.
Like you just said, with all the money, you wouldn't have designed it this way.
No, absolutely not. How I found this lumber in an old wagon ship that I had planed down and turned into this table. I didn't even know that wood was there until years later. Right. So, and it's a kind of a poor example, but again, everything here is with intent, with thought going into it.
Which I think is, dear, when we do these episodes, I try to be cognizant of, like, where are the lessons here, right? Because we're having a conversation, and that's the fun part. But people are hopefully listening because there's something in it for that, right? To learn from you, from us, from whoever, right? And I think one of the lessons here is this idea that I talk to people all the time, like younger people, people who want to be entrepreneurial, but they can't for some reason or another. And I put that in quote intentionally because I don't generally believe that. One of the things that I hear more, the thing I hear more than anything else is, well, I don't have the money, and I don't have, the money, having all the money, all the capital accessible to you isn't always, to your point, is not always the best the best thing for you, because to your point, now I build something that in 5 years antiquated, right? Because I can. Not because the market told me to, because I thought it. And you talk about when you came in here and the building, it was Swiss cheese floors and this and that, and you're 27. I presume you didn't have millions of dollars in capital in your pocket, and you didn't have the advantages that most people think business owners who they see 16 years later doing very well and having built this wonderful product. Go, oh, well, yeah, he did it, but I could never do that because I'm 27 and I don't have any money, and that's your story. So, I don't want to use the word excuse, but people mostly make excuses on these kinds of things. You weren't given any, at least a whole lot, I don't know the story, but how did you go from that to this if you weren't given everything?
I was fortunate when I was young, and by young I mean 22, 23. My job with Marriott was a timeshare resort. I got my real estate license in Florida, thinking I was going to sell timeshare, and I met this group of guys, people, and they actually hired me, knowing that I didn't have a lot of experience, and they could kind of train me. You talk about it in bartending or things. If you don't come in with any bad habits,
right.
So to have a fresh face,
yeah.
They were happy to mold me, and I became essentially a relocation agent for them. For a nursing home company, and I got into real estate. And with my first commission check, my boss said to me, he says, "You have to invest this. You cannot go waste this." He said, "The real estate market is so hot. You have to buy a place now." And thank God I listened to him, because when I was 23, January of 2004, I bought a condo right in the peak white hot part of the real estate market. And I came home in 2006, that summer, on a vacation, was up in the hills having a family, we call them picking parties, these little bluegrass parties we'd hold. I came down to Froggy's to truly just buy a bag of ice, and saw the for sale sign out front. And the rest is history. I looked at it and I thought, maybe this is the opportunity. And I can remember my grandfather telling me, for as much success as he had selling lumber and hardware, it was the few real estate deals he did that really changed his life. And so, cashing chips while you had chips to cash, I didn't have a real emotional attachment down there. I saw myself being in my 20s and staying in South Florida and being, having a lot of fun. I'm living on an island, making great money that I had earned myself, but was able to sell the condo and use that as my seed money to come and buy Froggy's. So it's not that I had to finance it a normal way and apply. I don't know if that story would go the same if I was just 27 and trying to start off on my own, because I had just enough cash in the bank where the bank didn't actually do a whole lot of due diligence. So I built the store and had some adversities with water system, and I had to have a lawsuit that I, thank gosh, won before the place even opened up. I was part of a lawsuit based on, but that forced me then, now it's September, the store is complete. Thank God I didn't open at that time. I looked at what little money I had left for carrying costs and said, if I bring in all this inventory and I sit here all winter on Pringles and Pop-Tarts, I'm not going to make it. And so I just grinned and bared it, got through that next winter, and that April, opened the doors in April of 08. I was still 27 at that time. And thank God I didn't open, because now I know how really slow. I mean, even this past week, Thursday when I was open last week, I mean, it's still slow here. We're a very lake-driven business, and when the lake isn't happening, there's just not enough going on to make it worth my time. Struggled through that first year, had to take out a line of credit to pay the mortgage to get through that first winter, didn't travel at all. Woe is me, right? But
Right.
I was fortunate enough to be in the position to have enough equity at that point, already having been built up, where I could ask for a loan and get it kind of without a whole lot of trouble, thank gosh. But it didn't start out with all the traveling and stuff like I've got to now. There was a struggle, but it was a little different struggle. You were talking about not having been given all that. No, nobody wrote me a check or was an investor. Being my own boss was the most important thing to me. I could have bought into the family business like my brothers are now, make a lot more money, but have partners and have to work year round. Two things that were way more important to me than the dollar was.
Yeah, well, you said something, I'll just disagree with it in a minute, you'll see where I'm headed here, but you said you were lucky. And nothing you just said there makes me seem like you were lucky. You worked, you got your commission check, you invested it, you use that equity to invest in this business. That is the opposite of luck, in my opinion. The only reason I pointed out is because I'm constantly preaching to people, take control of your life. Don't take your commission check and buy a boat or go on a vacation or buy a liability, right?
Yeah.
That we always talk about. Invest it in an income-producing asset of some sort, a condo, and then maybe you got a little lucky, you sold it in 2006 and 2007. The housing market. I mean, those are life luck.
And lucky you listened to your boss or mentor, or whoever it was. I mean, that's the only luck.
Yeah, he's the pig back there on the he would always say that pigs get fat and hogs get slaughtered, which is one of my core values. To get greedy is not a good thing.
Yeah.
So that was.
But anyway, that was my pushback. I just want to mention that because, a lot of things I've done look like luck in hindsight. But if I hadn't had the discipline like you've had, and the outlook of, hey, this is what my future. This is what I want my future to look like. Not just I'm on a wave and life is a wave and it is what it is and life happens and you can't take it with you and all these cliches that I find are misleading and damaging to young people. I'm much more like, you're going to get opportunities. Not a lot, especially when you're young. Look ahead. Be disciplined. Take advantage of them. And you're going to fall flat sometimes, right? We all do. But if you're leading a life like that, you'll be shocked at what happens in your future. If you go with the old, I can't take it with me, so I'm going to spend every dollar I have today, and some of these other things, I think you're doing people a disservice. So that part of your story, I think, is very valuable to people. That's not luck. That is, I want freedom, essentially. I don't want partners. I don't want bosses. I want to do things my way. It's cut from the same cloth. That is why you're where you are today.
Sure.
And I think it's important to point out. So.
Yeah, well, I think that's what we liked when we started this podcast, and you fit right in that we like surrounding ourselves and talking to people when they don't like what's happening to them. They work their best to fix it or change directions.
Yeah.
Right? I have a lot of educational friends that feel stuck. You have friends that feel stuck.
Plenty.
You have friends and that's when the word "you're lucky" comes in. And there's no luck. There might be 2-3 years of heartache because you're changing directions, but on the other end, it's not luck. So you start the business in 2006, and you just live happily ever after, right? I'm setting you up for this one.
Yeah, no, and that's another thing that I kind of, if I wanted to use the term insecurity, I don't have a lot of great investments that I have made outside of this place, but I have always considered myself to be my own best investment.
Great.
The problem with a seasonal business is right now I have as much money as you're going to see me with it, and it's only going to get lower and lower. So I haven't found ways passively to kind of replenish what I've got, and that is something that I have to go to work next year. I know that that's a fact, and that's something I think about when it comes to retirement. When do I retire? How do I retire?
Sure.
I'll pay off this mortgage in 6 years and use those resources, savings there, to probably switch into a manager, a more serious management role where I can create other people to kind of replace me in my own absence, which is always the goal. Thankfully enough, this place is worth more than what I paid for it originally. The real estate market nationwide has done well. Cuca continues to shine, even when other places seem to be slowing down a little bit. So I know that in 6 years, I'll have something that's worth a lot more than I paid for it. So I remind myself of that when I get a little insecure about my lack of other investments, because I don't have a lot of stocks or even God forbid, a 401k or even a Roth IRA, which my bookkeeper would continuously yell at me about, And so I need to step out and part with some of that money that I do have saved up. But at the same time, it's like I'm just doing it. I am. Part of me does just go year after year, and I'm not buying boats.
Right.
But I'm spending this on experiences for myself, which I will continue to do. Because there's no reason to sit home and have a pile of money and not do anything with it.
I mean, me, the more opportunities my goal is always experiences. I mean, I have a boat, it's a complete waste of money. I would give that up in a heartbeat before I ever gave up one of my trips or something like that. That experience, that philosophy, I guess, of experience over everything else, in many ways is, and I know I interrupted you here, but it's near and dear to my heart. I rarely interrupt.
He interrupts everybody. Go ahead.
But I think if you're gonna have a goal, I don't think it should be money. I think it should be freedom and experience.
You have a system. I mean, that's what's important. Yeah, a routine.
You also, Seth, have a income producing asset. You have the golden goose, right? I mean, there's bigger golden gooses. I mean, there's always bigger golden gooses, right? Or is it golden geese?
Would that be a gaggle?
Yeah, right.
But anyways.
But you have an income producing asset that I'm just getting to your, the retirement, the future, what's that look like? And that's personal for you, of course, but just from an outsider, do you have as you said, you have a timeline of 6 years, a mortgage paid off, now I have extra income or fewer expenses that I now can redistribute that revenue elsewhere to buy some more of my time back, or keep your time into it but use that money to invest in other income producing, no boats, but other income producing assets. And then the day comes, whether it's 6 years from now or 26 years from now, you've got something you can sell and then leverage that into
I think it's
retirement.
a particular time that I'm at right now too, because I get this lump of money every year that I then have to figure out, here's what I need. I've got a $3,000 mortgage payment. I've got to set out 6 of those, put that money away. Take your taxes, insurance, all that, put that away. Okay, here's what I have left.
Yeah.
Over the last few years, I've taken that and have invested in myself. We have a brand new dock down below. We have brand new shelving and branding and parking lot and a new sign across the street. Well, I also have a 190-year-old family home that I'm the 7th generation in that I'm trying to rehab as we're doing it. So I have new windows, a new roof, and new siding, and eventually a kitchen, but new bath. So I am investing.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I don't see myself parting with any of these things. So to get the money back, I got to sell
them.
Unfortunately, and so I have reinvested in myself more intensely over the last few years, which I think is probably a little bit of my anxiety about it, because I haven't saved a lot over the last few years. But I can look back and be like, we have a brand new gas pump and a brand new stove here, and it's just made life so much easier and so much more efficient. You remind yourself how worthwhile those investments are, and hopefully next year you don't have to spend that money. And the improvements that I'm talking about, to me, are 20, 30, 40-year improvements that I don't have to think about again now that they're done.
Right.
And have done that in my early 40s. Now I'm really starting to transition into what is this next phase going to look like for me? Because now we're going on 20 years of owning this place soon enough. I don't think if you told me I was going to own this for 20 years, I would have believed you. I don't. But at the same, now I'm so invested emotionally, it's hard to see myself parting from it. And if I do leave, what's this look like?
Yeah.
I have a great community of friends and business partners here that I've become really close with, and I get to this point of the year, and I question my own sanity sometimes. I'm getting ready to go on this trip for 2 weeks. It's off the grid. I mean, it's it's all solar generator, no electric line, no nothing, because I have this yearning to just decompress and really get away from it all. I almost feel like I need it. I don't know if that's healthy to drive yourself to that point.
Yeah, right.
Year after year after year, and I really question, can I do this for 6 more years? It doesn't sound like long, but man, when you're in the throes of it, it's a lot, and it's mentally exhausting, wearing. So I'm glad to be where I'm at right now. I'm glad to have you guys here. You want to take a break for a minute?
Yeah, we're gonna take a bathroom break. I always wanted to say that. All right, we're back from our bathroom break again. That's the level we're at now, that we can take breaks. I forget exactly where we were at, but let's just go off on this tangent. Matt talked about it. You've agreed to it, that your place is an experience in general. It's you. It's your name. It's the brand. Have you ever thought of trying to bring that name or brand to other lakes? I mean, the Finger Lakes there's several lakes in the area, so why can't there be other Olney places?
I think having the waterfront element is such an important part of what we do. You know, our new logo on part of our new marketing is by land, by lake, by the air. And I think the aesthetic being waterside, of course, with that, property values are through the roof. The idea that we have fewer businesses on this lake than we have had, and we're very fortunate here on Keuka to have the businesses we do: waterfront, Switz, lakeside. You know, you can park your boat in Penn Inn and Hammondsport, and there's a real waterfront kind of feel that I love being a part of. So to just be like, oh, let's go buy another waterfront piece and make a sandwich shop, I don't know if that necessarily works. And I've been asked that when a place goes up for sale, there's a place maybe in Canisius called Shoreless Acres. You know, people have said, oh, I wish that we had an Olney Place at some time. And it's flattering, but at the same time, so much of this model has been predicated on my presence. So I have a lot of apprehensions when it comes to trying to replicate myself in my own absence and creating that same feel and having, not micromanaging in any sense, but making sure that we're constantly checking the vibe to make sure that when I walk in here every morning, the music is at a certain volume on a certain station, the lighting, the way it smells, the way it looks. I am my own harshest critic, and I have some trouble kind of relinquishing some of those responsibilities day to day. Interesting that you ask. Something I have kept totally off the radar. Just, I hate losing. So if I make this play and I don't get it, I have to be okay with it, and I am. There is a particular piece for the last 15 years that I have said, if I was ever going to make a true sequel or even franchise, if you will, of this place, the marina in Watkins Glen is one of those places, and it's currently up. The county has put out an RFP, a request for proposal. There's lots of qualified businesses. I'm sure that will make a play to it. Probably by the time this airs, a decision will already have been made. I hope, God forbid, or we're just going to have to edit this out for now. But for your viewers to kind of play along here, they can probably follow up with this. We will submit an offer to the county on Wednesday for a bid for at least a 3-year lease to try to occupy that space at the Village Marina in Watkins Glen. Currently, the home of Horset's Brewing. We've talked to Brian Lilly, just a great business person who's had a lot of influence in the region. I don't know him personally. If he tries to make a bid, he will likely get it, and deservedly so. He's already there. We just feel we have an opportunity to kind of expand our energy into Watkins Glen. I think that location works because it is on the water. And to do something a little different that's been done there. In my travels, whether you're in Newport, Oregon, or Portland, Maine, communities that are on the water, there's always something going on from sun up to sundown. And as I go into Watkins Glen, I visit that marina space. Nothing is happening until 11, 12 o'clock when those lunch and dinner businesses start to roll. So to provide a refined version of this, where maybe you have all of the best of the best. You know, we're not dealing in the paper plates and charcoal end of it, but the best snacks, the best dips, spreads, cheeses, to have some prepared sandwiches, to have a bar. And we're a grocery store now because by New York law to be a restaurant and qualify to even sell like wine and spirits, prepared food has to be 51% of your revenue. We will never have that when we have gas or we have all the other things we offer. Where there would be, we would go for a tavern wine license, so we'd be able to have mimosas and things and do some things that we don't currently do. But to offer a really refined model that would highlight the very best of what we do here, offer some merch. You know, it's next to a hotel. They claim there's 1 million people that roll through that park in the course of the year. They've just expanded the NASCAR schedule out to September. So I think that's an opportunity to extend the season that much further now that the race will be that much more important to the series. To get a big event like that in the middle of September in what is already a really busy town. The difference of that model to here is, and I'm not even making this up, it's at least 92%, maybe 95% of all of my traffic. You know, you're talking on the 4th of July, we're doing 500 transactions a day. 98% of them probably came either by boat or by car.
Right.
We have no walk-through traffic. We're in a 20-mile stretch. You know, we get some joggers, we get some bikers, things like that, but for the most part, we don't have that kind of captive audience. You've got the big hotel right next door, you've got the park, you've got all that, you've got this marina with how many hundreds of slips. And I think it provides us an opportunity to have a different kind of audience than what we have here and still expand kind of to an economies of scale where you can carry over the brand. You know, my kitchen is certified as such where we can be making prepared foods here. So if we're making 25 pounds of potato salad or chicken salad or whatever it is, well, let's make 40 or 50, you know, and we can have some shared services probably between both locations. I hope that I get to have that opportunity. I don't know if financially it's the best one I can make. I don't know if energy-wise it's the best one I can make. But having been here 16 years, it's not that I don't feel challenged because this provides plenty of challenges every day, but to have a little disruption in my life for at least a short period of time seems enticing. So if I get it, I get it. And if I don't, I go on another trip or go hunt deer or fish or go in my woods and trim trails or whatever it is. So I'm going to be happy with either decision, but I hate losing.
Sure.
So I hope we get that opportunity to bring this product somewhere else and expand.
No one in life should like losing, right?
No.
But people accept it more than losing.
I'm a much better loser than I used to.
You don't accept losing very well.
Yeah.
Losing's not the problem, in my opinion, because I've lost plenty. It's not trying.
Yeah, and that's probably
fair
it's
enough.
not trying.
Yeah.
And I don't care whether we're talking about this
Yeah.
or sports or whatever. It's like the not trying is really where the downfall is for so many people. It's this idea that, well, I'm happy where I'm at. And I don't think people are mostly. People can be happy where they're at. Don't get me wrong, but there's so much growth. I was just talking to our camera person a little while ago about her experience on just, it's about continuing on. It's about growth. It's about finding. It's not money. It's not it's growth, and that can come in a lot of different.
Nothing stays the same.
It does
And
not.
if you're not getting better, you're getting worse.
You're getting worse.
And
Yeah.
You're constantly fighting depreciation, both of body, mind, as well as the physical spaces around you.
Yes.
And I think of adulthood as one giant lifelong journey through the constant discovery of deferred maintenance.
That's funny.
So,
You use that word depreciation. It's always a monetary term, right?
Yeah.
But it's a life term.
yeah.
Yeah.
We're older than we started this conversation.
Yeah. Well, as a business owner in that community, myself, I think having that in the community would be such a benefit. And I'm saying that as a business owner and as a consumer, right? I think it would add a lot to it, and I hope for the community it happens. But more than anything, it's the effort, it's the taking a chance, it's the doing, it's all those
It's
things.
something I've never done, so to go through and to talk to my marketing team and putting together a presentation and kind of crunching some numbers and using some data and my own forecasting, I try to take as much emotion out of these types of situations as I can. As a realtor, you're always telling potential buyers not to get emotionally attached to things. So I have those kind of core values built in. So it's not that I intentionally run low expectations, but I learned it at Marriott early on, under promise, over deliver. And I live by those words, and I hate to disappoint myself. So I am prepared to not win this, but I'm also prepared to expand and challenge myself in a different venue. There's a paradox, I forget, it was from the book Good to Great, it's called the Stockdale paradox. And
I have not.
I've heard of the name, but I don't remember.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get the quote wrong, because it's just something that let me see.
I've not heard that one. I'm all ears.
You must never confuse faith that you will prevail in the end with the discipline to confront the most brutal facts of your current reality. So it's really Stockdale paradox. It's really like being as true to yourself about your situation as possible at all times.
Truth.
Whether you're battling an illness or financially or the opposite, your experience, keeping in check really what you're capable of and taking an honest inventory both of your own assets but within your own mental capacity as well.
One of the biggest impacts I had on my life from a financial standpoint, from a business standpoint, was, and I did this years ago, I still do it today. When I was trying to change my financial life and what I was, because I felt like I was burying my head in the sand. First thing I do every morning is look at my bank account. And it was the truth, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not hiding from the realities.
Yeah, just because you don't open the mailbox doesn't mean the bills aren't coming.
Exactly, and this was not a good financial time in my life. And by just doing that, and I've said this to your class before, it changed my life. Just doing that, because then it changed how I looked at things, and it was right out in the open, and it's a great lesson. And whether it's that or your health or your relationships or whatever happens to be, but it is pillar one, truth.
Yeah. What I love about all the guests in all 100 episodes, and you're being true to it today, the reason I cling to Matt is he's true to it. I find with high school kids, they're so busy going down that highway of life, where they want to go, they forget to take the exits sometimes, because you never know what you might find. Might be a completely different journey. I think that's Seth's story today. When you were 18, if you could predict you'd be here today, you couldn't have guessed it in a million years.
Certainly not here. Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
I thought I always wanted to be a part of the Finger Lakes. Whether I was going to be, originally when I went to SUNY Albany, it was a political science degree. Most of my friends were in a 3+3 program, and they went on to become attorneys or whatever. I thought I was going to be a lobbyist. Lobby.
Back to what you said earlier.
Yeah, something like that. So, and whether that, Chamber of Commerce president, I was always a really big fan and advocate for the Finger Lakes way early on, always. Going into wine shops and asking where the Finger Lakes section was or whatever, I was just a huge homer for this region. And I had friends that would come from New York and now come back regularly that admit that they would have never come here had I not been such a huge advocate for the region. And now to do that professionally and to be, I tell people in a region like this where it's really a landscape, right? Like, you're never going to be the sun. You can only hope to be a very bright star in a very cool constellation. So to live here, you have to be willing to really enjoy it to its fullest. To go to Naples and go to Watkins Glen and go to Trumansburg and go to Hammondsport and go to Geneva and really get out there and experience these other places, and realizing that we're all kind of in this together, and it's not a zero-sum game. The bigger this pie gets, the bigger your slice is going to get. You're never going to have the whole pie.
Yep.
And just because another business opens up it doesn't mean that you can't look at it as competition. You have to look at it as an opportunity and another reason that people are coming to the region. We have Crooked Lake Distilling down the street, Keg and Barrel, Vice, Le Sueur. None of these places existed when I was open.
Right.
But I think for a lot of them, it showed them that it could be done. And now we have this incredible landscape of eateries and breweries, and now you throw in artwork and transportation, and you look at what Penn Ann's done over the last few years. It's like, it's awesome. And the more options we've had, the better my business has come. You know, we just had by a narrow margin, our best year in 16 years. It's pretty tough to do. You know, you try to find ways to innovate and increase revenue and all that, and stay as profitable as possible. But yeah, I love where we are. I love what we do, and I'll continue to be an advocate for the region the rest of my life, just as I did probably when I was 18. That, to get back to your point, that is good. That is what I knew. My passion was to be the champion of this region.
I love your perspective, because there's a lot of people we all know that think, oh, we live in a terrible area, it snows, the weather's not good. But if you sit back for a minute, people from all over the world literally come vacation here. And we have like a half a dozen vacation spots we could drive to in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Right? And I think you get that, we all travel a lot. And my wife and I go places and we'll find ourselves saying, oh, this reminds me of this place in the Finger Lakes, or this place. We have it right in our backyard. I'm glad you've always seen that, because so many don't.
Yeah, no, to work and have a career based on where people vacation. You know, people are generally in a better mood. You know, because when they're here, they're on break from wherever the reality is, and whether they're the landscaper passing through, or the Verizon guy, or whatever it is, or some industry leader who's just here to unwind. This place is the equalizer. They're all. I'm going to heckle all of them equally.
Well, we've seen growth here that's just unbelievable. I mean, being lifers here, you know, what we've seen from when I was a kid to where we are.
I went to Outlet 111 last night. Shout out to Natalie. It's amazing. If you've not been, it's the old Garrett Winery building right on the bridge that feels like it's been under construction my entire childhood. But 111 and Blue Heron Bakery and Parker's and Laurentide and 18th Amendment and Amity Coffee, and I mean, we have more options than we've ever dreamed of here, and being here in the winter doesn't seem nearly as brutal as it used to. And
it's not. It's just not. I mean, and what I always call, from your place down to basically Le Sueur, right in that area, it's how many miles? 6 miles?
Tops,
5-6 miles. That I call a corridor of Keuka Lake. I call it's in my world the corridor of the Finger Lakes, because there's you and there's this whole stretch of business there. And what, to your point, the add-ons, it's only giving it more value, more reason to come. And then I own the property down there. I own land down there that we're building on and try to make something out of as well. Not in your world, but in a rental, kind of more vacation world. But what has happened here over the years is I don't know. I can't compare it to anything. I've no comparison to it. But it's not a zero-sum game, and that's when you said that, I'm like, that's what people need to recognize. Not just here, but anywhere. Like even in my Subway world, I don't begrudge any of my competitors. I wish them the best. I hope they do well. Provide good value. Provide a good product and service, and you can win. But you're not. I don't feel like you're taking from me. I don't see that most of the time. I don't see this competitive environment in many cases. I see opportunities to win together, and I've seen it more as an owner than as someone who could, let's say, a theoretical thing. Theoretical seems competitive. In practice, I see cooperation and collaboration, and that's what I see is happening more and more here. And you've always been that way. You've always been an advocate of the region, not just come here. Keg and Barrel, you mentioned. When that opened, that could have been a threat to you, I would imagine.
People still, I'll be in there. I'm probably their best customer.
Exactly.
People, oh, you're at the competition. I'm like, the competition? Like, because they sell draft beer?
Right.
I ran a business for 10 years that never had anything what's their worm price at 7 in the morning? You know, what's their breakfast sandwich like? What's the
gas.
simple fact we're open 5 hours before them, they're not competition.
Right.
Let alone once they do, they're selling gin and tonics.
Right.
And yes, they have draft beer, but we've diversified. That's not just what I do.
Yeah.
I didn't do it for many years.
Yeah.
And I welcome it.
Yeah, well, exactly. Again, it's one of my, the lessons I try to look at in our conversations. Like, people should see it this way, and they don't all. In fact, it's very common they do not. And that's why I like to point it out, because then there's successful people living it in the other way. And I just think it's important to recognize these things. We're not always competing with each other. I think that's why I say in Paul's class all the time. Here's why I hate school, and I don't mean it,
Right.
but I'm trying to get a rise out of them a little bit to pay attention. If we collaborate in school, it's cheating, right? We can't do that. We can't talk about that. I get why, but out here, people go there. There's another reason to come to the area, and now they're going to come get breakfast or a beer the next week at your place, or whatever it might be, and that is real world stuff that actually happens.
Zero-sum game that mentality is so childlike. Because I think of my world as an educator and a coach. All right, we don't win the championship, but if you build relations with your opponents, and it might lead to like-minded people that strike business deals, or use your platform to make the world better. Like if you watch an NFL game, the fans are all crying afterwards and mad. And what are the players doing? Shaking hands, hugging, taking pics, using the limelight to build their platform. There's nothing zero-sum about it. I feel like zero-sum is just when people don't have anything to build off. And I just think it's so childish.
Just greedy, whatever.
Yeah. That's interesting. You're right. The players, there they are hugging, and they're like, "Oh, we're building." I mean, they get better contracts. They get because there's more interest, and they're all winning together.
And don't get me wrong, Michael Jordan's built a better brand because of his multiple championships. So I'm not saying losing's okay, but you can still win. The process isn't just about winning games, even though that helps.
Yeah.
You can still build a great life and help others and have a great society. The zero-sum thing, I just don't like that.
Seth, to back way up, when I said it earlier, I meant it. I really always thought you would get into politics.
I was gonna ask
and you
that.
haven't thus far. Is that whether lobbying or I mean, your personality is a natural in my opinion, but now your business experience changes that even more. As far as I'm concerned, do you ever think about it? Is that anything you would ever consider?
I had a friend make an Olney for Congress sign one time as a birthday joke gift, and I stuck it in the window. And this is probably 2010, and people thought I was actually running or whatever. I am a political science major. I went to SUNY Albany. I worked for Charlie Nesbitt, a guy who was the deputy speaker at the time. I was a legislative aide in George Winter's office when he was Speaker Pro Tem, both in the Republican Assembly, which is a huge minority in New York State. And I guess as this business has grown, I have become more and more comfortable. When I left the Capitol in Albany upon leaving college, part of me just, I don't want to wear a suit. There's little things. I don't want to be at a ribbon cutting for some public building on a sunny day in June when I could just be here. Now, if the nature of politics was such where I think there's so much centralized power in the federal government that we have lost kind of what this isn't the farmer and the doctor and coming together to make some legislation that's better for all. And I feel less and less now like you can make a difference because there is so much concentration. Yeah. I think that's part of the problem. I think that it's become too much of a career for people, and you're groomed to be in these positions. I used to joke, and maybe it's still true, the only reason I don't run for Congress is because I'd win. which is
I'm glad I didn't
know.
take a drink.
And I don't know if that's the case, because you have to be so. I'm much more independent and find a lot of, and I'm not going to go out and, I'm financially fiscal and socially, or, fiscally conservative and socially liberal, whatever. Yeah, that's, I feel just like a person now. And I don't know if I have that gumption and drive to be, most of these people just seem like professional fundraisers anymore, which I hate.
Yeah.
The last thing I do is have to ask for money. And that's more or less what you sign up to do as I become more and more of the reality. And I've known most of the local politicians, a lot of them make their way in here. Tom O'Mara, our state senator, or Bob Duffy, who's, former lieutenant governor. I've got to see these people and I see how they operate, and they do great work. Bob Duffy's in particular, what he's done at the chamber in Rochester is nothing shy of remarkable, and where the whole region has gone. I think it points out that you can make a difference for a lot of people and not have to be an elected official to do it. And I think the longer that I'm here, the more I realize that.
Okay.
I've joked even on air in previous interviews, things that I think would be fun to be like a one-term governor. I'd love to be the governor. Right. Like that.
Yeah.
I want to just scale. People say, why aren't you going to run for the school board? I'm like, school board? I have kids. Why would you trust me? Why don't you run for town board? I'm like, my dad's on the town board. I'm doing 2 Olneys on the town board. That's the last thing anybody wants. So I don't really have the interest of running for something to try to form a career as a politician, which you almost have to do. I guess if my success got to be as such where you're almost thrust into the opportunity, I would take it, but it's not anything that I actively seek out anymore.
Okay. Well,
that's what makes it so appealing.
Yeah, it does.
Because we don't want you to be a career guy.
But the people that should be running for office are so turned off by the tone and the overall just culture that DC has turned into. That most of them seem to be in it for the celebrity or for the power, not any actual difference that you want to believe is why they do what they do. I don't believe any of them.
They're more alike than different. Well, everybody.
2 wings of the same bird.
We're all on the same page there, and we don't usually get into politics on this stuff, but mostly because it's depressing.
It really is.
But I do. I've wondered, and we haven't gotten into it too deep on a personal level, but I thought I would bring it up because it is certainly, well, at the same time we all hate it, but at the same time it's never been more topical as far as I can tell, politics, because of the frustrations and some of those things. But I think to your point, it's hard to make a difference unless you're,
I'll keep making sandwiches.
Yeah.
You're making a difference for them.
Yeah.
You really are.
Make a difference in your community, right? And try to have a positive impact there as well. But it's definitely something that, and I remember the sign. I mean, I've seen the sign a million times, and I knew it was a kind of a joke, but there was a reason it was printed at the same time as well, right?
Oh, yeah.
We always like to end with a question of advice. So, as an educator, I feel students don't realize how much control over their lives they have. Like, they get into the rat race or the hamster wheel, or they're told they should be this because they're good at this by their parents. If you were 18, or if you were talking to kids that were 18, well, which you've had, but the question is, what advice would you give them? Like, should you follow your dreams? Should you find a skill? Should you make some money?
I don't have kids, which, being the 7th generation, there may or may not have been pressure to do that. I never felt it from my parents or anybody, but a lot of people ask, when are you going to do that? Because it just seems like what you're supposed to do. Mm-hmm. And I've never done that. So I think my initial piece of advice was never do what you feel like you're supposed to do because everybody else is doing it. Like, that doesn't, I don't know why we fall into those norms and social mores where you feel guilty if you don't do this, or that you're supposed to do this because somebody else expects it of you. And if you're not comfortable in your own skin and you don't really love what you're doing all the time, you're never going to be happy. You never try to please somebody else and sacrifice your own peace of mind because of it. I think is something that I have never done.
Yeah.
To younger people, life is short. I was always an early riser, and waking up in the morning, my teenage friends, they're sleeping until 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. I've been up with the mom and dad, and they're having breakfast and adult conversations, and I always took a lot of that to heart when they were telling you, I can't believe how fast it's. Out of the gate when I was 18, I knew life was really short, and I believed it, and I've just never tried to forget that. So that's another one or side piece to that.
You think that's impacted your life in a lot of ways? That you believe life is short?
Yeah.
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 That's funny, me too. Because I had to have open heart surgery when I was younger. I was 23, I think, at the time. And it wasn't a big deal in the sense that I was going to die. Although, when you're having that, you certainly think those thoughts. But what it did for me is I went, oh, life's short. Life's short. And I believed it. And I get asked all the time about a variety of things. And so often it comes back to, well, you know why? It's because I was convinced life is short, and therefore I had to act, I had to treat it differently because of this experience. And you're the first person I think I've ever heard talk about it like that, because it's been so impactful on my life. So that's interesting you say that, because one of the reasons I respond and take action, we talk about action all the time. Action. We can think and discuss and draw plans and all this. Who acts? Who is taking action? That's who I want on my team. That's who's going to succeed in life. One of the reasons I've been so active is because I know life's short. So it's just, again, I interrupted, but I just think that's a great point to make, is life is short, and when you know that and you feel it, you're more likely to take action.
Yeah, my moment was right shortly after we were married. My wife had cancer.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think she'd make it, and you find out real quick every day. Like, people say those cliches, every day is a gift, don't have a bad day, have a bad moment, but if you have that perspective, or you know that early on, it makes life a lot more fun too, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And you know who doesn't take action? Critics, usually.
Sure.
And yeah, this was great.
It was great.
So episode 150, do we book it right now here?
Let's do some math. Oh, that'd be a year away, right?
Almost,
Almost, yeah.
Even one of your repeats.
Yeah. Well, no, we'll
or
have
we
you
could
on
have you
before.
sooner. Yeah.
Maybe we'll
Thank
Zoom
you.
with you the old-fashioned way, like
No.
we used to do it.
We got to be here on site.
I expect the next time you'll have your own studio.
Yeah, there's
with a
enough.
small
We're just-
production team.
You know what? No doubt in my mind it'll happen.
Got me.
We've got our production team.
Yeah, AV team, but no, this was great. This was
Yeah.
special. This was different. You were the ideal guest in what we talk
Yes.
about. Your hospitality,
Yeah, thank you.
wonderful, and your place is just, near and dear to me for selfish reasons, but it's a model of what you can do in your life, and that's always what I'm trying to get at with people. I don't care who you are. It's like, create your own world, create your own reality. And to your point earlier, what's the truth of my situation, right? And if you do that,
Yeah.
you can impact things in a way that, from a guy who buried his head in the sand for a while, that you can't do if you don't look at that. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm honored to be here. When you reached out and
Yeah.
asked me to be the 100th guest, oh my gosh, it's
Mhm.
kind of my first podcast. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, now
I
you're
should see
professional.
how it turns out.
Now you're a professional. Quick side note, when we took our break, it wasn't just to go to the bathroom. We did a lot of footage, and Seth has a lot of stories about everything in his place that would be very interesting to everybody. So we'll get that out there too. But
Yeah.
it was awesome. Thank you so
I'll tell you
much.
about the apple fritter couch sometime.
Yeah.
Yeah, and next time he comes on, the apple fritter couch story is what we're leading with.
Oh, subscribers only.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, until next time. See ya.
See ya.